Has joined, ma'am. We'll just wait for principal, ma'am.
Yeah,
Sure.
I'm here.
Yes, ma'am. Yes,
Yeah,
ma'am.
let's
Good
go.
afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, everyone. I welcome you all on behalf of Mata Sundari College, Department of Philosophy, IQAC, and all its members. I welcome you all to this webinar on intellectual property. And our speaker for today is a very renowned academician and scholar. And thank you so much for your overwhelming response. And I'm sure we are going to have a very, very interactive, interesting session, enriching session. I'll quickly introduce our organizing team of this webinar. That is Dr. Lakshmi, Dr. Hemlata, Sangeeta, Ms. Priyanka, and Ms. Ishpreet. I now request our principal, Professor Harpreet Kaur, to welcome our resource person, Professor Amar Singh, and also say a few words about the topic of the webinar. Ma'am,
Good afternoon,
please.
everybody. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, this is one of the another seminar in the series of seminars organized by Mata Sundari College. And in this webinar rather, I really welcome Professor Amar Singh because I read his CV and I was very impressed by his CV. He is really an institutional builder, academician par excellence. He has been associated with various law universities across India and also like Himachal Pradesh and Hyderabad, New Delhi, and so on. He is also associated with the government of India and the ministries, and he is giving his own opinion on intellectual property rights. And he's also, attended many and organized many seminars and conferences in India and abroad. And he has written various books also. 3 books he has written, and he's also established Lincoln Law College, Punjab, and also in Noida, Lloyd Law College. And so he's institutional builder in this sense. And his academic work is also very appreciable. So I welcome you, sir, on this webinar. And I welcome all the participants who have spared their valuable time. And I'm sure this webinar is going to be a value addition to it. Now, the topic for today is very, very different and rather very, very pertinent because what I understand is that, traditional knowledge in India is immense and we are not paying due attention to it. We have not been able to portray it. It's only after, when abroad people recognize our own concepts, then, we just we feel that it is important, but we don't delve into the depth. See, the indigenous people have immense knowledge and we don't even read about them or study about them. One example that comes into my mind is during tsunami, this Jarwa tribe in Andaman and Nicobar Island. Now, they are the Jarwa tribes, one of those tribes who live very close to nature till date. They are scantily clad also. They live on trees and they are not prepared to live even in the houses or not prepared to take even the clothes given by the government. And so they climb the trees because they could foresee that something is going to happen. So with a lot of devastation there, Jarwa tribe was not at all, affected. So that means their sharp sense was there, and they could know. That means their knowledge was too much, and but we don't understand. Similarly, the traditional knowledge about the plants and the animals, the variety of animals. When we can river and pray to rain god and tree god, that means we understood the benefit of it, and that is why we were just praying to it and made them rain god or whatever, tree god and so on, fish god and so on, because we realize the importance of it. In Gurbani also it is said, Pavan Guru Pani Pita Mata Dharth Mahat. That means, that actually emphasizes the importance of greenery also, water also, all those bounties which the earth is giving us. So we have to understand this, and here I think we are lagging behind when our own, intellectual properties have been taken up by the other people, and when we have been using it here very often, but we don't realize it and we don't timely attend to it and react on it. So Professor Amar Singh is a resource person. He will tell you many things about it, and how and it will actually make us understand that how our traditional knowledge is very, very rich, and we have to preserve it for the posterity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. So without much delay, I request Professor Amar Singh to deliver his lecture to take us through this session.
Good morning, everybody. So I try to make the subject simple, taking into account the profile of the participants. So let us come to the agenda straight away. We have huge profile of traditional knowledge and biodiversity in India. However, the holders and the owners of the same are not adequately recognized and compensated. So the conflict of interest between the holders, the owners of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity, and the prospectant is very obvious. And unfortunately, the national and international regimes, especially the TRIPS, are not favoring the holders of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity. Now, I come to the points or issues which I shall be going to talk to you on today's webinar. Let us make it clear at the first instance that traditional knowledge and biodiversity is an economic resource. I repeat it is an economic resource, and a huge economic resource which has the potential of the production of various kinds of products and services. So we have huge resource of the same, but somehow the legal regimes are not conducive to the owners and the holders, and therefore I have raised all those issues for the attention and maybe for the cognition of the participants. So as I said, the traditional knowledge and biodiversity is the economic resource. Let us see what are the other economic resources along with this resource. So I have listed possibly all the economic resources which flow from the earth or anything existing on or around or under the earth, such as earth, anything in and over it, air and space, life on earth in any form, labor of any kind and any type, physical and intellectual both, and knowledge of every kind, which includes the knowledge of the biodiversity uses for the human beings and the mankind, which we call as traditional knowledge, which has been understood, gathered, used, experienced by the traditional communities for the time immemorial. So having said that, I have given the definitions of these two resources, traditional knowledge and biodiversity. I can summarize this definition in one sentence. Traditional knowledge is the skill, experience of the community, understanding, recognition of technology, of using the biodiversity to serve their different kinds of purposes. So, having said that, now let us find out the connection between or the relation between the traditional knowledge and biodiversity with the IPR products. Before I start deliberating on them, let me put at the beginning that the IPR regimes, national as well as international, except CDB, are all Protestant-centric, not the owner-centric. That means the persons, the people who hold technology, they are using it to their advantage and to the disadvantage of the holders. Ultimately, the prospectants are also going to suffer in the long run, in the sense that the biodiversity is cultivated, preserved, groomed only by the communities. If those communities are not respected or duly compensated by the prospectants, that sources will exhaust. And there shall be nothing for them to make capital out of them. Now let us quickly go through the different products of IPR. Function of the IPR is to commodification of knowledge of various types. But there are some items which are not the production of knowledge, but they are the symbols of market recognition that I also addressed, and they are also addressed in the category of IPR. Speaking precisely, they are not IPR. They are not IPR. To start with, the patents of both kinds, process and products, are the commodification of inventive process and product knowledge by the prospectants through the process of IPR. IPR commodify the knowledge about process and the knowledge about the product of the IPR. So the function of IPR legislation is commodification of the knowledge of any kind. So patents involves the process knowledge of the products which are commercially viable, which are demand in market, which has commercial utility because they have a human utility. Human demand them for their progress. Therefore, there is a demand, and the prospectants work on them, that they are the connect between the demand on the one side, but the supply comes from the owners. The relation between the creators of this knowledge and the commodifiers of this knowledge, which are the prospectants, are the relations of conflict of interest, in which the owners are always on the receiving end. The second product of the IPR is the copyright. Copyright is the commercial private knowledge. It is protected. However, the creative commercial folk knowledge, which involves huge IPR of the communities and which has more potential to create the income and the resources, is not protected. So the requirement of the time is that, and to be fair with the communities who have produced, carried on, and made it available to the public at large, the market links here in case of copyright product are the publishers, who never gave the fair treatment to the authors. I think most of the teachers must be knowing how much royalty they got and how much money the publishers may be making out of that. And as I told you, the creative commercial folk knowledge has a huge market. In cinema industry, you can notice most of the popular songs, tunes, they are coming out of the folk music, and best stories are coming from the folk stories, including Mahabharata, Ramayana. They are the folk stories, and these days huge money is being made out of that. But those who created it, carried it, popularized it, created a goodwill for it, they are not getting any share out of the benefits of this product. Then you have trademark, which is considered to be IPR, but precisely not IPR. It is merely a commercial symbol of goodwill of certain kinds of products, by which they are popularly known in the market, and that creates the demand in the market due to the recognition of the trademark. Similarly, you have another product called geographical indication, which I again told you not an IPR product, but it recognizes the geographical area of the production of certain products which are popular because they are created at that particular area. So that area recognition is also protected, but what is the benefit given to the people of that area is again disputable. Now let us see why this is happening, whatever is happening with reference to this conflict of interest of the prospectants, authors, or cinema producer, song producers. Why it is happening? Does it have some relation with the economic systems? Yes, it has a relationship with the economic system. The economic system of any country determine the legal regime of the country. And IPR is a legal regime. It has its own, the economic system has its own bearing on the legal regime. So the legal regime of IPR is of one kind in capitalist economic system. It is of another kind in the socialist economic system. It is still of another kind in the mixed economic system. In the capitalist economic system, the function of the IPR law is to commodify the commercially viable knowledge, to make it after commodification as a private property and market it to earn profit. This is what happens in the capitalist economic system. Capitalist economic system, the property in IPR is privatized, commodified, and privatized by the legal regime to the advantage of the prospectants or the publishers. However, in the socialist economic system, the functions are different. In the socialist economic system, in the commercially viable knowledge, including traditional knowledge and other knowledges through IPR, are commodified for protection against stealing and for socialization, making the benefit to trickle down to the society at large. So this nature of difference of the IPR law is due to the nature of the economic system in which the IPR law works. I put it like this, that the nature of laws are subject to the nature of the economic system of the society. Now, as I told you that since in case of any resource, there is always a conflict. Wherever there is a property, there is a conflict. And if there is a IPR property, there is also conflict of the stakeholders or of the participants. In case of IPR, there is always a conflict of interest on the one side of the owners of the property and on the other side, the prospectants who have the proximity to the market. In case of traditional knowledge and biodiversity, this conflict is between the bioprospectants and the holders of traditional knowledge and the biodiversity. So the function of the law should be to balance this conflict. But as of now, as I told you, TRIPS, the international regime, and the national regimes of all capitalist economic system are loaded in favor of the prospectants. If you have a look on the global initiative for addressing this conflict of interest, CBD, Convention on Biodiversity. This is a contract between all the nations of the world. I need to point out what happened. Something has happened. Hello?
Can they hear you?
Hello? Are you in a position to hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yes, I think.
We are hearing.
There is- Hello?
Yes, we
Yeah.
can
We are
hear you. Yes, we
Yes,
can
sir.
hear you.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Continue, please.
Okay. So if you look at the global initiative to resolve this conflict between the owners, the holders of the property of traditional knowledge and biodiversity, there are two agreements. One agreement between the nations in which all the nations are involved. All the nations, all the 195 countries, they are the signatories. However, after the convention is signed, it has to be approved by the national legislature bodies. All the national lawmaking bodies has approved it except that of USA. Because USA had the reasons to play politics in this sense, they wanted to take undue advantage out of these resources of traditional knowledge and biodiversity. So they brought in another agreement after the CDB. CDB was signed in 93 and TRIPS was brought in 1995. And they tried to bring in the IPR in the WTO regime, which otherwise has nothing to do with the intellectual property rights, which is an area of WIPO. So as you or everybody knows that the Americans, through international arm twisting, they made the countries one after the other to sign the TRIPS, and around 168 countries have signed it, including India. Since CBD, all in 195, in TRIPS, the signatories are 168. However, in the TRIPS, it was agreed that the TRIPS agreement shall be reviewed after every 2 years. So just after 2 years, all the members except 2-3 who are the signatories to the TRIPS brought a suggestion or item of agenda in the party conference to amend the TRIPS with the reference to the conservation of biodiversity and sustainability of biodiversity and the benefit sharing of the benefits coming out of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity. Saying in brief is that the provisions which had already agreed by all the nations in CDP, they wanted them to bring in the TRIPS. Now this agenda item is lingering on the agenda maybe around 15 years. On one pretext or the other, the Americans, they postpone this item on some time on substantive reasons and sometime on procedural reason. So this conflict is still going on in the party conference of WTO, where all big economies of the Asia, they have joined hands together to bring in the benefit sharing of traditional knowledge and biodiversity in the regime of TRIPS. So TRIPS are not compatible with the CDP. To make TRIPS compatible with the CDP, this agenda item is there on party conference, but still the final outcome is awaited. The idea of American objective of prolonging this item was due to the fact that they wanted to delay the benefit sharing coming out of the benefits arising out of traditional knowledge and biodiversity, so that the patent period which they have got patented on traditional knowledge and biodiversity may expire or may remain minimum to be expired, so that they make the maximum benefits of the traditional knowledge and biodiversity through their pirated patents. That was the latent or tacit objective of the delaying the item of review of TRIPS on the agenda of party conference. So this I have already told to you that CDP is signed by all the countries effective from 93. TRIPS is signed just by 168 countries effective on 95. So in law, the prior agreement sustains unless it is amended. The prior agreement of CBT is neither discharged nor amended. Still, the TRIPS are intending to continue in defiance to the provisions of the CBT. So this is the logic which I just explained to you. The interest delay serves the interest of the American prospectants because they are holding at least 5,000 pirated patents on Indian traditional knowledge and biodiversity. This is just Indian. How much may be the total volume of the pirated patents which the Americans or the Europeans or the Japanese maybe or UK may be holding. So if you go through the survey of the pirated patents, the maximum pirated patents one finds on the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity are the European countries, UK and USA. Now I have listed these 4 or 5 as an example of pirated patents which belongs to different communities but patented in different legal regime. The turmeric patent which used the Indian. Hello? Hello? Are you hearing me? Am I audible? Hello?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
I'm audible?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So if you look into the profile of the turmeric, which has 235 chemical formulations, we call it as active elements, which has medicinal value. To contest this patent, which is pirated on the traditional knowledge of the Indians, the Indian government has to spend 7 crore rupees. That means to contest a pirated patent of USA Protestants, the Indian government has to pay 7 crores to the legal professionals of USA. So both way, the American society are professionals, prospectants on the one side and legal professionals on the other side is gainer out of the pirated patents. I have listed 4 or 5 pirated patents. Also, you may go through these details. Now, if we look into the richness of our biodiversity in India, about which I have only the data of 65% surveyed land. So 35% survey is yet to be conducted by the government. So the broad the information which flows from this survey is that India holds 2.4% of world's land, but has recorded in the 65% of the land 8 to 9% biodiversity of the world. 8 to 9%. You can see we have 300, 400, 500 more biodiversity with reference to the land relation. And we have 375% more species of animals. India has 47,000 species of plants and 81,000 species of animal, which is the highest with reference to any country. And we need to note that this survey's data is about only 65% of the Indian land. The 35% land is yet to be surveyed. And this land is much more richer than the land surveyed. This is the land which is in the Himalayan ranges and in some of the islands, which are much, much more richer than the land surveyed. Therefore, we can easily say that India is one of the richest country with biodiversity. Not only the wild biodiversity, but we are also one of the richest cultivated biodiversity. So the variety of plants, cultivated plants in fruit, vegetables, and cereals India has is highest in the world. So this was about the surveyed data of the Indian biodiversity. Now we have the recorded biodata, which are recorded by the experts. That was recorded by the government. This was recorded by the experts, because only expert could understand this section of the landscape of recorded traditional knowledge. In this committee, which created this body of information, is put as the traditional knowledge digital library in the form of traditional knowledge digital library, so that it could be accessed by the offices of the patents world over to use it as a prior art knowledge before granting the patent to any applicant. The recorded database includes 54 authoritative textbooks on Ayurveda medicine, nearly 150,000 Ayurvedic and Unani Siddha medicines, about 1,500 physical exercises, postures of yoga, which are as old as 5,000 years. And the committee has recorded about 2 lakhs treatments, which extends in the book form to about 34 million pages. The huge oral, this was the recorded, which was only traditional knowledge, which was in the form of the records, is recorded by this committee in 5 languages. The most of the traditional knowledge in India and through ancient time is recorded in Hindi, Sanskrit, Urdu, Arabic, Tamil, etc. Now, that recorded traditional knowledge in this original language has been recorded and translated into 5 languages. English, German, French, Japanese, I think one more language I'm forgetting at the time. I will let you know when I come across that slide. However, we have huge traditional knowledge which are carried by the individual in the oral tradition is yet to be recorded. Maybe this traditional knowledge, which is not on the record, but it lies amongst the different communities and different locations and is not recorded, maybe much more than in quality and volume than the one recorded by this expert committee. Maybe government needs to take some initiative to bring this traditional knowledge on record. Otherwise, it will die along with the people of the community dying. So the function of this digital library was to, on the one side, to provide information about the Indian traditional knowledge to the patent offices world over, so that patent offices may arrest the piracy in seeking the patents through their patent application. So the traditional knowledge, as I told you just now, is reduced to 34 million pages of text, which I told you was translated into English, German, Spanish, French, and Japanese. Let me make you out a point. These are the countries where the maximum piracy of the Indian traditional knowledge is taking place. So to make their patent offices available the prior art of the Indian traditional knowledge in the patent application, this tradition digital library has been created for the consultation of the patent offices world over. Now this, as I told you, this library is acting as a prior art of information, means that if any information or knowledge is already existing, and the patent seeking is not possible under the regimes. So despite that, still there are around 2,000 patents being acquired around the globe, pirated patent around the globe, based on the traditional knowledge of India. 2000 is a huge number every year. Therefore, we can say that a huge amount of traditional knowledge of India, which has a tremendous economic product to create huge wealth for India, is being pirated, and the countries with the legal systems, they are creating wealth out of our traditional knowledge. But I have a feeling when translating our traditional knowledge in these languages which are known in the pirate countries, the possibility of piracy may also increase. Instead of arresting the piracy, the impact of these two set of international legal regimes on the Indian legal regime is like this. This is very important for us to understand. The impact of TRIPS of WTO has a first, or in other words, you can say that the Indian legislature submitted to the pressures of USA to make the Indian IPR regime conducive to the TRIPS instead of the CBD regime. On the other hand, we have another international legal regime of biodiversity, CDB of 93. Our Biodiversity Act should be in consonance with the provisions of the CBD. But however, if you go through the provisions of various legislations in India, the biological resource legislations, whether diversity or plant breeders legislations, are not in consonance with the provisions of the Biodiversity Convention. They are more in consonance with the TRIPS initiatives. Now, having said that, what we should do? We need to do at the level of the law and at the level of the administration. So first we have to do at the level of law to change the legal regimes in such a manner that the administrative legal regime shall automatically change. So we have to make our Biodiversity Act and our patent regime in consonance with the provisions of the CDB by bringing or assuring in that the benefit sharing by the prospectants with the holders of the traditional knowledge. If you look into the Indian Biodiversity Act, it doesn't provide the benefit sharing with the holders. However, in case of foreign prospectants, the National Biodiversity Authority may seek benefit sharing not with the holders, but with the Government of India, which has nothing to do. As far as the national prospectants are concerned with the right of the traditional knowledge holder, there is no protection to the owners of the traditional knowledge holders. You can see within a few years, Baba Ramdev has made immense wealth because he has used the traditional knowledge of the people without sharing its benefits with them. Therefore, we have to cultivate access regulations to regulate the access to the genetic resources in such a way that the benefits is shared with the conservators and the holders and the promoters of the resources. We have to develop benefit sharing models where the adequate benefits of the IPR and biodiversity may be shared with the communities who had been cultivating, promoting, protecting the biodiversity and has created a huge volume of knowledge of the use thereof for various human problems. And we have to institutionalize the management of these resources through legislative measures. So if the legislative measures follow, legislative measures always contemplate the administrative measures, how the legislative provisions are to be brought into action. So the sum of the listed administrative measures, which I have listed in this slide is, one to generate the inventory of the genetic resource holders and conduct literacy and valuation awareness of the for the stakeholders. So we have to make the holders aware of the value of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity, and to generate data of market valuation. What is the market value of their traditional knowledge and the biodiversity they are conserving, promoting from centuries together, from time immemorial. We have to create the market value of the same, which can be determined by making the economic analysis of the market forces subject to the of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity. And we need to develop appropriate models of benefit sharing, which is entirely a function of academics. And academics must be interested with this function, and they should be recognized for this work. And we should provide legal information to the TK holders and biodiversity holders of their rights they have in their traditional knowledge and the biodiversity, the potential of creating wealth. They must be aware of this. So these are the desired administrative action which are required to be taken. It has two important functions to be served. If it is done, it will morally justify the use of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity. It will add to the utility of its value to the custodians of the traditional knowledge and the biodiversity, as well as the society at large. By sharing benefits with the holders, we shall be in a position to recognize them and encourage them and take more benefit out of their possessions or custodian of biodiversity and the knowledge of traditional knowledge. So you have economic reasons because it is economically beneficial to the world as a whole if the custodian or the owners of the traditional knowledge and biodiversity are suitably rewarded by the benefit sharing. So we come to the conclusion and brief 3 points that we need to make IPR regime protecting the owners of the traditional knowledge rather than protecting the pirates. Protection, it should not be pirates protection regime, but rather a IPR holders protection regime. As of now, it seems to be a pirate protection regime except the CVD. The holders of biodiversity and TK needs to politically organize and prescribe their comments to equitably and honestly reframe their IP regime to eliminate piracy of their property in the form of traditional knowledge and biodiversity. The national and international regimes must recognize the interest of the IPR holders of biodiversity and traditional knowledge and grant their due share in the benefits thereof as contemplated in the Convention on Biodiversity by developing appropriate models of benefit sharing. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'm open to answer the questions.
Yes, we'll take the questions in the chat box. And I invite Hemlata to read them out and sir can answer them.
Before
Thank you, sir. It
I
was
take-
really, sorry.
Before I take the question, it will be useful if the participant have a look on the appendix slide 23. 23, slide number 23. Because this slide will approximate the participants to the workshop of the traditional knowledge and biodiversity. We use this knowledge and biodiversity every day in our kitchen. So I think we are well conversant with our kitchen items, which has large number of biodiversity products. And we have the traditional knowledge about that. That's why we are using that in our kitchen.
Yes, over to you, Hemlata.
Sir, thank you first of all for such an enlightening lecture. There are many interesting questions I can see in the chat box. So I'll just scroll down and read the questions. Am I audible, sir?
Yeah.
The first question that I come across is from Dr. Lakshmi Vatsa, and she's asking, what are some ways in which intellectual property rights can be violated?
What is the?
What are some ways in which intellectual property rights can be violated?
Please explain, the question is not clear to me. What is the sum? What sum?
What are some ways?
Ways.
Yeah. What are
If you violate the patent law or the copyright law or the trademark law or the geographical indication law, you violate the IPR there. So you have different items of IPR. Now the point is, which item is the subject matter of violation? As far as the teachers are concerned, which I have been a teacher for more than 40 years, the frequent violation by the teachers, of course, students also, is of the copyright law. If you go through the various researches made by the teacher, normally the scientific method for the data collection and data classification and interpretation is not used, and therefore most of the research you will find cut and paste, and it has the stealing of the intellectual property of somebody else. So I think this is the area where if the teachers has to eliminate the violation, they have to train themselves and the students in the methods of research. And they must train the students that in the research where they use the secondary data, which mostly the Indian teachers and students they use, but they hardly use the data collection tool, that is the research cards. However, in the primary research, the tools I use are okay. But in collecting the data from the secondary cards, except the JNU and some of the universities where I worked, we introduced this data tool of data collection from the recorded data. to make it easy to classify addressing the research question. But in most of the universities, college institutions, this method is not adopted, and there is a huge danger now to the teachers and students to lose their dissertation or PhD degrees, even if the thesis is found to be plagiarized. So if you don't use the method, plagiarism is going to happen. There is no way, no other way.
Sir, so the second question is from Ranjana Roy Mishra, and she is asking that you should tell us something about the importance of sacred groves of India in conservation of our biodiversity.
Pardon?
The second question is from Ranjana Roy. She is asking that you should tell us something about importance of sacred groves of India in conservation of our biodiversity.
Tell about what?
Sacred groves.
I don't understand what is this, madam. Can you
It
can
is
see
there in the question in the chat box itself. I'll move on to the other question, sir. There's a compliment also. It says nice session, informative, and many other things are there. And one question is, why does not our own government popularize species unique to India?
Why our government?
Does not popularize the species unique to India, like most of us do not know about benefits of black rice grown in Manipur. This is again from Ranjana Roy.
Government popularized species unique to India, like most of us do know about benefits. So, I think this doesn't have to do with our today's topic. However, this is important in the sense that this product, if popularized, may have special qualities, may be useful for the people. This is the question of distribution of resources.
Sir, next question is from Preeta Nilesh. She's asking, what are your views on the benefit sharing of traditional knowledge?
My views of
benefit of sharing of traditional knowledge.
Yes. If, you see, I did this question during my presentation. Maybe my friend has somehow missed that. Traditional knowledge is owned by the communities, which are most of them are tribal, maybe illiterate, lives in villages and in the habitats of the biodiversity. Biodiversity and the people living in the proximity of that biodiversity are only the people who can find out the use and utility of the biodiversity to be used as medicines, food, and various kinds of uses they can put it in that. Now they are the people who conserve this biodiversity, who can protect this biodiversity, and who have the knowledge of the use of this biodiversity. And use is wide ranging, huge use in the medicine area. Let me tell you that 70% of Indian population is dependent on the use of biodiversity as a medicines. 70% is a huge area. 35% depends on the modern or the latest technologies in the medicine. And the traditional medicine and traditional use of the biodiversity as medicines are tested from time immemorial. They are safe. That's why the pirates are stealing now them from the ownership of the holders and seeking patents thereon without sharing the benefits. If you don't share the benefits with the holders, you are using their knowledge without paying them the compensation. If you don't pay them the compensation, why should they protect the diversity? Why should they promote the biodiversity? So it is an incentive to the Protestant also if they want steady supply of the biodiversity and continuously use the knowledge being produced continuously by these communities who are living in the proximity of the biodiversity. They will lose that. Let me remind you, two young scientists of Kerala. Before CDB came in, they did one research in Kerala. Otherwise, they belong to the regional research laboratory of Jammu, but they originated from Kerala, and they went to Kerala to collect some plants, some herbs which are used for curing the liver ailment and dealing with the fatigue. So they came across a tribe which lives in the Western Ghats of Kerala, a result forest area. They found that the tribals of that area, they have found out one herb. When they go for hunting and they feel hungry and they are tired, if they eat the fruit of that herb, they feel energized. And on research, it was found that their liver is more healthier than the liver of the others. So then they, in collaboration with this community, they developed a drug known as Jeevani. And this Jeevani had a huge demand world over. And the population of these this tribe was around 25,000 only. And they could pay each family of the tribe 200 euros per month, the income coming from the sale of this drug, which they have developed in collaboration with this tribe. So they did the benefit sharing, and huge profit was coming in. However, subsequently, these people were not, academicians were not on the scene, and bureaucrats comes in. You know what happens when bureaucrats occupy the field of academics. Everybody knows, every academician knows. So it's not working as that good as it should. And on the other side, our IPR regime and CBD, as we have enacted, is not pro-holders and pro-owners of traditional knowledge. It is favoring the prospectants. This is our legislature who are doing it. Why they are doing it? They are not doing it without any underhand deals.
Yeah. So, sir, there are many questions, but I don't think the time permits us to go through all of them. There is one question which I would like to take up, which concerns all of us. What we at our level can do to protect the traditional knowledge. This is asked by Dr. Meenakshi Swami. What
I think
we
this is a very important question. And I have especially prepared a slide for you, which is in the appendix. Every one of you, especially the ladies or maybe the gents who are functional in the kitchen. So your kitchen is a dispensary of traditional medicine. And you can start with these 3-4 biodiversity products: turmeric, black pepper, cinnamon, and cardamom, which I have noticed. They are the oldest Indian origin. The dispute of their origin has been settled. And the kind of traditional knowledge developed about this is tremendous with reference to the addressing the various kinds of ailments. So all of us can look into the spices which the Indians they use in their kitchen and find out the benefits coming out of that. So that is what we can do very easily, and we can test it in the. We can increase the volume of our this lab which we have in our kitchen. Lab come, this dispensary can be a lab come dispensary. So more you increase the volume of the use of these spices with getting knowledge about their use and utility with reference to our health, I think that would be a great service. Real functional service on the micro level, that is from family to start with. It will go to the whole nation.
Thank you, sir. So there are many questions, but I think the time does not permit us to go through all of them. So maybe we can share your email ID with the participants and they can be in touch with you.
I think you have my ID, you can give them.
Yeah. So Manisha, over to you now.
Thank you, Hemlata. I now invite Dr. Lakshmi Vats from the Philosophy Department to present the vote of thanks. Over to you, Lakshmi ma'am.
Yeah.
Lakshmi ma'am, can you hear me?
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, ma'am.
okay. Okay. I wish you all a refreshing afternoon. On behalf of Madam Principal, my entire team, and on my own behalf, I express our sincere gratitude to Professor Dr. Amar Singh sir for leading us all to the conceptual clarity on this subject of great national and international relevance. Truly, our traditional knowledge in biodiversity makes us feel proud of our heritage. Protecting it, as we have learned today, is the need of the hour. Professor Amar Singh sir, I also express my sincere gratitude to you for accepting my request to enlighten us when you are away from your personal library, away from your working desk, and away from the country in Switzerland. Joined by my team, I heartily thank Madam Principal Dr. Harpreet Kaur for her supportive approval and for all the words of wisdom radiated a source of energy within us. I give entire credit to my worthy colleagues, Dr. Manisha Mathur and Dr. Hemlata Krishnani, for organizing today's webinar. Ms. Sangeeta Pathak, Ms. Priyanka, and Ms. Ishpreet Kaur Verdi, as always, disregarded their personal comforts and with spontaneous cheerfulness did a commendable job of their work well before time. A million thanks to you all. Our sincere gratitude also goes to all those who registered for webinar and participated therein. Ladies and gentlemen, if there is anything for which thanks are not due, I am humbly before you. Thank you. Thank you all.
You're welcome.